Hello, Joey. Hope you're doing well this morning. I'm gonna have to talk quieter as of now because it is early in the morning. But today we're going to be talking about The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, which I've listened to multiple times by now. I did take some notes, as you can see here, of the quotes that I found the most impactful, and we're going to go through the list and we're going to discuss them. So, this is in order of when they are mentioned in the 30-minute tape, so it will generally line up with what you would find if you listen to it. So, first thing was that men don't think. This was quoted by a someone that was being interviewed that he was quoting, and I just thought it was an interesting thing to think about because sometimes it feels like I don't think, and sometimes it feels like I overthink, if that makes sense. But just an interesting quote to start things off with. Uh, Something that I've thought about quite a bit is we take this golden age for granted. He mentions how this is something that humanity's been pushing towards for thousands of years, and now that it's here, we take it for granted. And I thought that this was impactful because, in a sense, something that humanity's always pushing for is to try and make utopia on Earth, if that makes sense. We're always trying to push towards our own idealized version of what life should be like, and the ideal of whatever you're pushing for, you could describe as such. But despite the fact that, generally speaking, for people like me at least, food and water comes easy. Uh, I have a bed, I have a house. I very much do take this for granted sometimes. I do also take time to just appreciate the small things. Um, and I imagine that there are people that take things for more granted than I do. Um, but that's the interesting thing about the generations are that come afterwards and sort of feed on the good times that are made by the people before them, is that they don't truly appreciate what went into making it. Um, it reminds me of a quote from "See You at the Top," where Zig Ziglar was asked a bit of a, not a silly question, but one that felt silly by this lady that was like, you know, you know, how do you know all this? And he was saying that he didn't tell her about the hundreds of hours and hundreds of times that he got up, drove somewhere in the dead of the morning to make it to somewhere 2 hours away just to meet a couple people and have a little bit of speaking time. And the point of that is that the people that make these things, whatever it might be, are engrossed in the process, and it humbles them. But the people who simply enjoy the benefits that it creates, they don't have that same understanding generally. There are exceptions to that, but I'd say as a general rule, that's the case. Something that the audio track mentions is that out of 100 men from 25 to 65, only 5% are successful, one being rich and four being financially independent. And something that's interesting is that if you tally up the amount of people by the end of it that he mentions, it's actually about 64, 65, which makes me believe that the statistic is counting for people that have died before 65. But that's interesting. Um, Now, this is a quote that I've thought about quite a bit, which is what success is. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. See, what's interesting about this is not how well worded it is. It's also that it's worded in a way where it's not the achievement necessarily that solely makes somebody successful, but the understanding of where you're headed makes you successful as well. So if you have planned something and you are working towards it, you are a success. If you are not doing these things, you're a failure, which means that success is not simply a a word to describe someone who has already achieved the things they're going after in life. It is someone who is in a very intentional pursuing of that achievement and knows exactly what they're going for. So that is a very interesting definition. Um, it helps, in a sense, for you to stick to something good for you because you think about it in these terms, and it's not like I'll only be a success once I reach this specific financial goal or this specific athletic goal, whatever it might be. No, it's a case of once you begin doing it, you can feel rest assured that you are doing something worth your time, meaning you are a success. Another thing that I've thought about quite a bit is the opposite of courage is conformity. So I think that this is something that plagues humans in general. Um, we conform to the average, and the average is low. Um, I do feel like something that I have done for a while now is simply conform. Um, I mean, I get up, I go to a battery shop, and I come home, and I've lined the pockets of some other person. I'd say that's conformity. Um, so that's definitely a very powerful quote that um, helps you realize that maybe you don't have as much control over what you're doing as you think you do. And the reason that conformity is so dangerous is the same reason that the enemy of greatness is not failure, it's good enough. And the reason these are synonymous and the reason this is because if you don't feel a spur to improve or to fix something, if you're just like, oh, it's okay as it is, then you don't fix something. And then that's worse than having had something hurt more than the consequences of not doing it, meaning that you actually try to do it and fix it, versus somebody who's just fine with something so meager. So, a interesting quote that I think works in a specific context, but is not attempting to be applicable everywhere, is we create over competing. Obviously, people still compete over things, but the point he was trying to make is that there is such an abundance of different ways to be successful in life, uh, that you don't necessarily need to triumph over competition to be successful. You can merely create your path and become successful. There's a quote that goes something on the lines of so many people in today's world wait for the right circumstances. The successful people go out and look for those circumstances, and if they can't find them, make them. Uh, that is around the same point as this quote here. Um, and I think it's targeting the same thing. And so he mentions what is one of the secrets of successful peoples. Successful people set goals. And funny enough, they would say this at different points in like school and whatnot. And I always hated it when teachers or the principal would do some lecture about goal setting. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just so stupid. But clearly, I just had a tendency to go against the crowd. Um, it is important to set goals. Um, I am trying to get better about setting goals by writing them down. Writing them down seems to work pretty well for me. Um, But yeah, when you have an outline for something that is reasonably attainable, then you've set a sort of like course for yourself that you can follow day by day. If you can track the minor progressions you need to make from one day to the next, you will get much farther than if you just simply are like, yeah, that's something I will do. Um, and this is a piece of, um, this is a quote that I need to instill in myself quite badly. Um, like actually think things out through to the point that I'm like, okay, this is how much progress I should be making in a week, in a month, stuff like that. So very important quote. So the quote that is the strangest secret in the world is this one here. We become what we think about. So this is the key to success and the key to failure. Um, Essentially, what this is saying is that we sort of create our own reality, um, or you can think about it in that way at the very least. Um, there are so many aspects to life that can affect you. There's so many things out there that are differing in one way or another. You can effectively shape your world by thinking about and attracting certain qualities towards yourself. If you think in negative terms, you will receive negative results. If you think in positive terms, you will receive positive results. So, generally speaking, if you are a positive person, you're going to attract positive people. I know, there's this saying that's like opposites attract. That's only true in some cases. Uh, Plenty of other cases, that's not the case. Um, Believe and succeed. Essentially, this is a quote that's also going to have one that's very similar to it later on. Essentially, this is saying that you need to have belief in what you're going to do and then you need to act upon it because these thoughts and whatnot are useless if you don't act upon them. Um, then he likens your mind to fertile land for a farmer. The important thing to take away here is that it is not important to the land or your mind what you plant in it. It's just the law of the world that it will return something in accordance to what you give it. So he likens it to corn versus nightshade. One is food and one is a poison. But if you plant bad things in your mind or had them planted there for you in the form of perhaps trauma or whatever it might be, then you are going to have that what has been sown in you shall you reap, and that leads to either very positive things or very negative things. Your mind will return to you what you have sown in it. So let's see, where are we? Everything worthwhile comes to us free. So things such as family, our mind, our body, stuff like this, these things that are absolutely irreplaceable, um, are things that we got for free. But this is a symptom of a materialistic country and world. People place very high value in things that you buy with money, and obviously there's going to be people that understand that the the true worth is in the things that came to us for free. And this is not to say that there is no value in things that you paid for, like you pay for a car, like, yeah, that's pretty valuable. If you didn't have a car, you need to go places. It's valuable for you to spend more money if it is a car that will not break down in comparison to breaking down. But I don't think that these are the point, these little like things you can point at and point out. I don't think that they're the point of the quote. The point of the quote is to say that there are things that are more important than the materialism that we live in, the things that we can acquire, more so the things that we merely have, the things that we can refine or make better, if that makes sense. The law of success is inflexible. So in this part, he is saying the the laws written as the strangest secret are as inflexible as the laws of the universe, such as another one that I wrote down. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So essentially, if you put your mind to something, you keep track of that goal, you've planned it out, and you work towards it positively, there is no way that you will not achieve it. So, that is a very important quote for me to hear because sometimes, a lot of the time actually, I can lose uh, steam, lose drive to do something, but I just got to remind myself that if I am positively, wholeheartedly working towards a goal that I've planned out and mapped, then there's no way that I cannot reach it. I just have to stay smart and continue doing things correctly. Or if I make a mistake, figure out what it was and pick myself back up. So, now, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Obviously, this is referencing one of the laws of the universe, but what he is saying in context of the book is that the the decisions you make will always have a reaction of some sense, or there you need to pay the price or you will pay the price. For example, just as something that I used as an example recently, what is the price of working out to acquire a healthier body? Well, it is multiple years or ideally a lifetime of exercise, which in turn means, painful struggle to acquire better looks, better health, more strength, more dexterity, stuff like that. The reaction to that input are those things. Now, what is the price you pay if you try to cheat and take steroids? Yes, you will have acquired the aesthetic and perhaps strength based things that you want, but you will pay a price for having done it this way. The price that you pay is that your health is going to absolutely tank the moment that you are off of the steroids, and it's very likely that you're going to die much earlier in life. So, everything has a price that you pay. And the things that we should be driving people towards are the things that the price that you pay is inconsequential compared to the reward of it. These things build you rather than destroy you. So, save at least 10% of your income. This is one that has been mentioned in quite a couple of the books that I've read so far. Um, it's just one that is important. It's to at least save that amount. One that I thought was interesting is you deserve this abundance as much as anyone else. This is to say that if you have an inferiority complex or something of the similar, that there's nothing saying that you deserve to be happy or wealthy less than other people. It is merely out there for the taking. And I know wording it like that sounds like you have to trample on people to acquire these things. That's not the case. Um, I think you can understand what I'm saying. But it's similar to a quote at the very end of the Financial University by Dave Ramsey. Uh, he says, good people should strive to become as rich as possible because the more people that have money means the less bad people that have money, because there's this idea that only bad people get rich, you know. So it's kind of similar in that sense, if you ask me. All you need is purpose and faith. So this was, these ones here are sort of going back to that believe and succeed one, in terms of the conviction that you need to go ahead and put it into action. Your purpose and your faith is the conviction that you have to go through with whatever it is that you are planning, and it's to point out that the how isn't the most important part generally. If there is something that you are willing to strive for, you will let certain answers come to you over time. You'll allow yourself to make mistakes, that way that you're still moving forward. That's a piece of advice that would drive my mom crazy. She'd be like, well, actually, you need to know absolutely everything before doing something. So, act as though it was impossible to fail. This is going back to that where the laws of success are inflexible. Act as though it is impossible that you will fail your goal. Imagine how you will act and feel once you have properly attained it, and think about those feelings. Money is the result of success / your service. So this is something that the book mentions, as most people have backwards. Essentially, money is like the scale, the yardstick that is used to measure how good and how much service you apply and give to other people, because the amount of money that you make is in direct proportion to useful things that you're able to do for other people. So this is definitely a good way of thinking about it. It's better than people that think like this person is successful because they make a bunch of money. No, the bunch of money comes from the success that they've had. So if you think you can enrich yourself by deluding others, you can only end in deluding yourself. So obviously there are people that have done not so great things to get money or to get other valuable things. And he says if the laws of humanity don't come to get their payment, going back to everything has a price, there are bigger laws in play that you cannot avoid, which is to say that even if you somehow delude other people to enrich yourself, that you will eventually face punishment, and this is not a life worth leading. It's much easier and much more wholesome. It's much more fulfilling to live a life where you don't have enemies that you haven't made from like lying to them and stuff like that. That you've made, even if it's less money per se, that you've made it because of honest work. And then the last one I have written down: change your image of yourself by writing down who you want to be. This is something that I will do, because I just bought like paper and like note cards like this and whatnot. I'm going to write out an essay on who I want to be, and then I'm going to abbreviate it and put it on a card that I'm able to look at, because something that I have felt for a super long time is that I'm just spinning my wheels and I'm not really going anywhere. And obviously that's not a good feeling, and it's not a good thing to think about yourself. And so if I were to write these things down and realize that this is what I'm trying to attain, then that would allow me to, with more conviction, once again, to push towards those things. But yeah, this review is quite literally almost as long as the the audio track itself. These are the quotes that I took away I personally found the most impactful. So hopefully you enjoyed this review. I'd love to talk about this book with you, and I mean, considering it's such a short and impactful read, it's going to be listened to many more times. So Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Peace.